Let's talk about government borrowing, a topic that's at the heart of how our country pays its bills and keeps things running smoothly, even when there isn't enough cash on hand. Think of it as the kind of debt that makes your credit card look tiny by comparison. While you might borrow a few $1,000s, the government borrows in the trillions. The US government, despite its unique power to print money, often finds itself spending more than it collects in taxes and other revenues. This gap between income and expenses is called the budget deficit. To cover this deficit, the government borrows money by issuing treasury bonds. These are essentially IOUs, promises to pay back the money with interest, and they're sold to a wide range of buyers: investors, banks, pension funds, and even foreign governments. These bonds are considered some of the safest investments in the world, largely because the US has a long-standing reputation for always paying its debts on time, no matter what. The US Treasury Department is in charge of this borrowing process. It carefully calculates how much money needs to be raised to fund everything from Social Security checks and Medicare payments to military salaries and infrastructure projects. When tax revenue falls short, the Treasury steps in and sells more bonds to investors, ensuring the government can keep operating without interruption. In short, government borrowing acts as a bridge, filling the gap between what America spends and what it actually earns each year. Without this borrowing, many essential services and programs would grind to a halt. Borrowing allows the government to invest in big long-term projects like building highways, funding schools, or responding to emergencies, while also managing the ups and downs of the economy. But just like with personal debt, there's a limit. If the government borrows too much, it can lead to higher interest payments, less money for other priorities, and even risk the country's financial stability. Right now, the US is borrowing at a pace that's making many economists and financial experts nervous, as the national debt continues to climb to record levels. This isn't just about abstract numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about the overall health of the country's finances, and it affects everything from interest rates to the value of the dollar. As we'll see, this borrowing spree has real-world consequences impacting jobs, family budgets, and the nation's ability to respond to future crises. So, why is everyone suddenly talking about a $514 billion borrowing announcement? Let's dig deeper and find out what it really means for America's future. The US Treasury just dropped a bombshell. It needs to borrow $514 billion this quarter, over $500 billion, in just a few months. That's not just a big number, it's a staggering sum that's caught the attention of everyone from Wall Street traders to everyday Americans. This announcement blindsided the financial world. It's way more than anyone was bracing for, and it's sent shockwaves through both Wall Street and Washington. Investors are scrambling to figure out what this means for interest rates, the stock market, and the broader economy. Just a few months ago, experts were predicting the Treasury would need to borrow only about $123 billion. Now the government's borrowing plans have jumped by nearly 4 times that amount. It's a massive leap that no one saw coming. Imagine you're planning your household budget, thinking you're on track, and then suddenly you realize you need to borrow 3 times your annual salary just to make ends meet. That's the kind of shock the government, and the country, is facing right now. This sudden spike in borrowing is a red flag. It means something fundamental has changed. Maybe government spending has surged, maybe tax revenues have dropped, or maybe it's a combination of both. Either way, it's a sign that the nation's finances are under real pressure. This isn't just a number on a spreadsheet, it's a warning signal flashing about the health of America's finances. Economists and financial experts are sounding the alarm, worried about what this means for the future. And keep in mind, this $514 billion is just for 1 quarter. It's being added on top of a national debt that's already ballooned past $34 trillion. A number so large it's hard to even comprehend. Every new round of borrowing piles more weight onto an already overloaded system. The burden keeps growing and the risks keep rising. People across the country are starting to ask tough questions. How much more can the system handle before something breaks? What does this mean for future generations, for interest rates, and for the value of the dollar? This isn't just another routine update from the Treasury, it's a wake-up call. A signal that America's long-term fiscal health is at a crossroads and the decisions made now will echo for years to come. So, what's really driving this sudden borrowing binge and what happens next? Let's break it down. Why the sudden need for $514 billion? It's a mix of problems. First, the Treasury's cash reserves are much lower than planned, thanks to political fights over the debt ceiling. These standoffs force the Treasury to drain its cash, making sudden borrowing necessary. Second, the federal budget deficit is huge. Spending keeps outpacing tax revenue, year after year. Programs like Social Security, Medicare, and defense drive costs up, while tax income lags behind. And now higher interest rates mean it costs more just to pay interest on the existing debt. The government is borrowing more just to cover its own interest payments, a vicious cycle. All these factors combined have created a perfect storm for massive new borrowing. To help with the cash crunch, the government is turning to tariffs, taxes on imported goods from China. Tariffs make foreign products more expensive, aiming to protect American industries and jobs. The official reason: counter unfair Chinese trade practices and encourage buying American. But there's another motive: revenue. Every dollar from tariffs goes straight to the Treasury. With the government desperate for cash, even a small new income stream is attractive. In theory, taxing billions in imports should help pay the bills and maybe reduce borrowing. But tariffs are a double-edged sword. They can disrupt trade and have unpredictable effects on the economy. The new tariffs add complexity to an already messy fiscal situation. It's a bold move, but whether it helps or hurts in the long run is up for debate. Tariffs connect trade policy directly to America's budget problems. Can they really fix the deficit? Can tariffs on Chinese goods really solve America's budget problems? Or is that just wishful thinking? It's a question that's been debated in Congress, on cable news, and around kitchen tables across the country. The idea sounds simple: tax imports, collect more money, and use that cash to shrink the deficit. But is it really that straightforward? Supporters of tariffs argue that by taxing goods from countries like China, the US government can bring in billions of dollars in new revenue. They claim this money could help pay down the national debt and fund important programs. It's an appealing argument, especially during times of economic uncertainty. But most economists and budget experts disagree. When you look at the numbers, the revenue from tariffs is tiny compared to the massive scale of government spending. The US spends over $6 trillion a year on everything from Social Security to defense to healthcare. Tariffs, even in the best years, bring in only a few tens of billions, barely a drop in the bucket. It's like trying to fill a swimming pool with a teacup. And there's a catch. Tariffs don't just raise money, they also raise prices for consumers, acting like a hidden tax on everyday goods. That means you pay more at the store for things like clothes, electronics, and groceries. When prices go up, people often cut back on spending elsewhere. That hurts local businesses, slows down economic growth, and can actually reduce the amount of tax revenue the government collects from other sources. There's also the risk of retaliation. If the US slaps tariffs on Chinese goods, China can respond by taxing American exports, hurting US farmers, manufacturers, and workers who depend on selling goods overseas. So, while tariffs might help a little, they're no silver bullet for the deficit. The impact is small, and the side effects can be big. In fact, if tariffs slow down the economy, they could actually make the budget problem worse by shrinking tax receipts and leading to job losses. Most experts agree, tariffs are a blunt tool. They might be useful in trade disputes, but they're not a real fix for America's deep budget problems. At best, tariffs are a short-term bargaining chip in international negotiations. They won't solve the debt crisis or balance the budget. The real solutions are much tougher, like reforming entitlement programs, rethinking tax policy, and making hard choices about spending. So, how does all this affect you? It means that while tariffs might sound like an easy fix, the reality is far more complicated, and the real answers will require tough decisions from leaders and citizens alike. Massive government debt isn't just a Washington problem, it hits home. When the government borrows more, it pushes up interest rates for everyone. That means higher costs for mortgages, car loans, and credit cards. Eventually, the government may have to raise taxes or cut spending on services you rely on. Rising debt payments squeeze the budget, leaving less for everything else. Businesses may invest less, fearing future tax hikes or instability, which can slow job growth. Policies like tariffs can also raise prices on everyday goods. In short, government debt shapes your financial future, whether you notice it or not. News of $500 billion in new borrowing has sparked fierce debate. Fiscal conservatives and many economists warn the debt is unsustainable, and interest costs are crowding out vital spending. They blame both parties, tax cuts without spending cuts, and new programs without funding. Others argue the US can handle more debt as long as the economy grows, and the dollar remains strong. They warn against cutting spending or raising taxes too quickly, fearing a recession. Tariffs are just as divisive. Some see them as protection, others as a tax on consumers. The result? A noisy, polarized debate with little agreement on solutions. Meanwhile, the debt keeps climbing. So, what should we watch for now? First, keep an eye on Treasury bond interest rates. If they spike, it signals trouble. Watch for more political battles over the budget and debt ceiling. Another standoff could damage US credibility. The Federal Reserve's actions matter too. Higher rates to fight inflation could make borrowing even costlier. Most important, the health of the US economy. Strong growth helps manage debt, a slowdown makes it worse. The interplay between growth, inflation, interest rates, and politics will shape the future. The next act in this fiscal drama is about to begin. Stay tuned. The $514 billion borrowing announcement is more than a headline, it's a warning. America's spending and revenue are out of balance and borrowing fills the gap. This isn't a partisan issue, it's a math problem, and the numbers don't look good. Tariffs and other quick fixes won't solve it, they might even make things worse. The national debt affects your interest rates, taxes, prices, and government programs. Ignoring it is like ignoring a leaky roof, it only gets worse. Staying informed is the first step to holding leaders accountable. The choices made now will shape the country for generations. This is about the long-term health of the US economy, and your own future. So, keep watching, this story is far from over.